I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Egyptians take to the streets in a march of millions, and Egyptian Catholics closer to home keep a close eye on it.
Go, go, go!
Plus, religious rights and religious wrongs on the world stage.
Not only to say you should have freedom of religion, but that there should be laws prohibiting defamation of religion.
And where black Catholics have been and where they're headed in the Brooklyn Diocese. Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Well, there were major developments in Egypt today. To the cheers of hundreds of thousands of protesters in the streets, President Hosni Mubarak announced in a television speech that he would not seek re-election in September, putting to an end his protracted 30-year rule. But he will remain in power until a new president is elected. This comes as waves of Egyptians flooded the streets of major cities in so-called million-man marches, calling for the ouster of their country's ruler. But was Mubarak's concession enough to put an end to the week-long protests? Many people remain skeptical. CNN's Ben Wiedemann was in Cairo today.
The Million Egyptian March has turned into what appears to be a million Egyptian protest here in Tahrir Square in the heart of Cairo. We saw as in the various roads leading into this square, thousands of people entering. And what was interesting is that an ad hoc security system has been put in place. They're checking IDs, they're searching bags, because people are very worried that elements of the Mubarak regime have been sent here to cause trouble. But here, what you're hearing them say is irhal, irhal, in Arabic means go, go. And that seems to be the one single message of the protesters here in Tahrir Square.
For those people, we are here for the prosperity of our country. This is my daughter. I got two daughters, and all these people are here sacrificing all their goods for the benefit of these people, for the benefit of this country.
I'm here to say to Hosni Mubarak, he must leave. He should be out. I'm here to say there is no true change, no true changes whenever Mubarak is there.
Go, go, go!
What you're seeing here is a cross-section of Egyptian society, Muslims, Christians, men, women, middle class, professionals, working class, all of them coming here with this same single message. But people are wondering, is their president listening to what's going on here?
Well, the Egyptian protests are being followed all over the world, including right here in Brooklyn by its Coptic Christian community. I had a chance today to speak with Father Antonios Phanous of Resurrection Coptic Catholic Church to talk about the protests and their impact right here in Brooklyn. Father, thanks for taking some time out for us today. We appreciate you stopping by in the cold weather.
Thank you.
First of all, what is the situation for Christians in Egypt right now? Are they taking part in any of these the protests that are happening?
I don't think that they're having something themselves, but they are. Some of them are in middle of the people, and what is nice in this moment that probably most of the country is coming against what they say regime.
Right.
But they are nice to have this union, but I don't think it is so nice what they are thinking of.
Right. Well, and I mean, the general sentiment, of course, in the country right now is to get Mubarak out.
Yeah.
That seems to be, that's what all the mass protests are about,
Yeah.
is to get Mubarak out. The question is, though, what happens after that? Could that have a negative impact, you think, on the country's Christians?
That could be, because I think, which is mine also only
Right.
idea, that there is no one who is suggesting a role or a program, but only the Islamic brothers, who I don't think they are of a democratic way of thinking of, but they are the best ones who are prepared. But nobody is getting a program, a nice thing to think of.
Sure. So no idea kind of where it goes from after getting Mubarak out. Just.
And I don't think to change is the right thing. To have not to change, but to have a real programs.
Sure.
That's a thing we need.
Sure. Not just change for the sake of change, but the right kind of change. In other words. Now, speaking of the Christian community, Coptic Christian community here in Brooklyn specifically, how are people who might be of Egyptian heritage dealing with what's happening in their homeland?
For me, I'm responsible for the Coptic Catholic community,
sure,
which is not so big. They're afraid. Every now and then, things around is not going in the right way. They're afraid for their parents, but they are not dealing so much with these political things. But I think the Orthodox community here, Coptic, they've done a lot. Mostly it's against the country.
Yeah.
No, against also the regime of Mubarak. I was talking the cardinal of the Coptic Catholic Church. He told me that that the situation in Egypt is very new. This time, to have all the parts with each other, it's very new. But at the same time, we are a little bit afraid of what is coming. But we are having only one thing to do: to have a meeting of praying all this time, because it is the only way to have our ideas clear.
Right.
Because we need a clear idea inside us, and not the changing comes not from outside, comes inside. To have more thinking of how to serve,
right,
how to work, how to deal, not only negatively but positively.
Sure. Father, thank you so much for coming in.
You're
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, stay with us. There's much more currents ahead. When we return, the Obama administration's health care law suffers a major blow. We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, religion is a hot topic at the UN. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, as demonstrators take to the streets of Egypt, many are heading for the airport. Catholic Relief Services has moved its international staff out of Egypt and into Jordan. A representative for CRS says they do not expect the staff to be out of Egypt for more than 2 days. This comes as the U.S. State Department announced it was removing all non-emergency personnel from Egypt. A spokesman says the State Department will continue to assist U.S. citizens who need help evacuating. Meantime, the leader of the Catholic Church in Pakistan says it's time for the silent majority there to speak out against radical Islam in his country. Archbishop Lawrence Saldana says Pakistan faces a dark future if the radicals take over power. The Archbishop spoke at an interreligious event in his country earlier this week. His statement comes just weeks after the assassination of a government minister who was allegedly killed because of his opposition to Pakistan's blasphemy laws. Well, turning now to events in this country. On Monday, a federal judge in Florida ruled that President Barack Obama's entire health care overhaul law is unconstitutional as an example of judicial overreach. In his ruling, Judge Roger Vinson said that Congress exceeded its authority by passing the law with the requirement that everyone buys health insurance. The Obama administration will appeal the ruling, they say. U.S. bishops have criticized the bill because they say it does not ban taxpayer-funded abortion. Last week, they sent letters to Congress supporting 3 bills that would make that ban permanent and protect the conscience rights of healthcare workers. Abortion also on the docket for Pennsylvania's Supreme Court. They'll consider a case involving parental notification. The case involves a teen that asked a judge for permission to have an abortion after she failed to get consent from either of her parents. The website Life News reports that the judge denied the request, but the girl eventually got permission from a parent. Pennsylvania's High Court will consider the role the judges play in granting consent. The case comes less than 2 weeks after a Philadelphia abortion doctor was charged with the murders of 7 babies and 1 mother at his clinic. Well, turning now to the state of Illinois, where Governor Pat Quinn said yesterday was a day of history after he signed a bill legalizing civil unions for same-sex couples. The law gives same-sex couples legal recognition in Illinois and many of the same rights as married couples. The law will take effect June 1st. Chicago Archbishop Cardinal Francis George and other Catholic leaders fought against passage of the bill. Closer to home, one of the daughters of former President George W. Bush has thrown her support behind same-sex marriage in New York. In a video for the group New Yorkers for Marriage Equality, Barbara Bush endorses a campaign to allow same-sex couples to marry. In making the announcement, she breaks rank with her father, who, during his presidency, supported a constitutional amendment to define marriage as between one man and one woman. New York's bishops have repeatedly weighed in on the issue, voicing their opposition to same-sex marriage. And finally, from the United Kingdom, the founder of a discount supermarket chain is being honored by Pope Benedict. Albert Goubet, the founder of the Quick Save chain, has received a papal knighthood for his charity work. Last year, Goubet says he made a pact with God and pledged to give away more than half of his fortune. That's estimated to be close to $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. If I wish I had it for myself. No, I don't really wish that I had it for myself. I wish I had it to give away. There we go. Stay tuned. There's much more currents coming up. Just ahead, the rich history and the future of Black Catholics in Brooklyn.
As far as this diocese is concerned, the numbers have exploded.
Welcome back. Well, February is Black History Month, and as we begin to celebrate, we wanted to get a full picture of where Black Catholics have been and where they're going. Along the way, there have been men like Pierre Toussaint, brought over from Haiti as a slave. He eventually gained freedom and contributed money to fund the building of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral in what is today Manhattan's Little Italy neighborhood. There's also Monsignor Bernard Quinn, the son of Irish immigrants. He built the first parish for Black Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Well, to find out more about this rich history, we sat down last year with some leaders in the Black Catholic community in Brooklyn.
The church is, prior to 1920, did not really have much experience with Black Catholics. And they weren't really sure exactly how to accommodate them, because their churches were predominantly white and blacks were a second class.
We were Black and Catholic well before these churches began to sprout up at St. Benedict the Moor in Harlem and in St. Peter Claver, and with the Federated Colored Catholics. Now, we never hear a lot about it, but in addition to Rome and Greece and Turkey and Asia Minor, Africa and Ethiopia, North Africa, were key center stones and bastions of Catholicism. We have been Black and Catholic from the very beginning of the history of the church. There were Black Catholics who came here as Catholic. Some of the slaves were Catholic.
In 1915 and 1916, Black Catholics actually took leadership in trying to get a church started before Father Quinn, because they felt that in the Catholic churches, they weren't able to be involved socially with the people.
The predominant experience was an experience of exclusion, of not being embraced. But there are exceptional moments that keep the Black Catholic movement moving forward. An example is Pierre Toussaint in the Archdiocese of New York. Here is a man from Haiti, a Black man in the Catholic Church, who becomes embraced by the Italian-American Catholic experience in the Archdiocese of New York and the Irish-American Catholic experience. And even to this very day, Cardinal O'Connor had his remains transferred over to St. Patrick's Cathedral, the new St. Patrick's Cathedral, out of respect for his outstanding legacy in the church here locally. But you also hear painful stories where people are not accepted. They're told to go to another church. They're told that Black Catholics are not welcome, colored Catholics are not welcome.
Monsignor Quinn felt that was his vocation, to do what no other priests were doing in reaching out to the African American people.
As far as this diocese is concerned, the numbers have exploded. 67 churches that were once predominantly non-Black Catholic churches are now predominantly Black and Catholic. That's a third of this diocese. That's the largest Black Catholic diaspora of any diocese in this country. That tells you that there's something about the Roman Catholic experience that appeals to African American, Caribbean, Haitian people, and holding on to it in New York City, in the capital of consumerism and capitalism and secularism. We've still been able to hold on to it and move it forward.
It's a different world that we're living in, thanks to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And today we know that Black Catholics would be welcome in Catholic churches.
And we will have much more on Black History Month in the days and weeks ahead. But stay tuned, there's much more currents coming up. When we return, answering old questions on religious freedom and asking some new ones.
And how, on an international level, you can maintain free speech, the right to criticism, and yet respect other people's beliefs.
Well, finally tonight, as we see Christians under fire in different parts of the world, religion has become a hot topic at the United Nations. And recently, Fordham Law School hosted a discussion where they took a close look about recent debates at the UN, specifically those examining defamation of religion and religious freedom.
Religion is not an entirely new topic for the United Nations. The General Assembly of the United Nations passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
This is part of a series that we do. It's an interfaith speaker series where we bring together people of different religious traditions to talk about topics of common interest. So this was the second in our series on the rights of religious minorities and discussing particularly the question of defamation of religion and the legal status of religion at the United Nations.
Since the mid-90s, and especially since the year 2000, there's been increasing interest at the United Nations on the role religion plays, and in terms of interreligious dialogue.
There's been a big effort not only to say you should have freedom of religion, but that there should be laws prohibiting defamation of religion. The word defamation is very broad, very vague.
In the UN declarations, they haven't said what defamation of religion is, and that is a major problem and could be used in ways to really discriminate, or worse, of other people's belief. For example, if Jews say they do not believe that Jesus is divine. Well, of course they don't, but that doesn't defame my belief as a Christian. I don't think that the UN, the Human Rights Council, or the General Assembly has been careful enough in looking at the legal implications.
The discussion tried to open out what are the ways in which perhaps the discussion at the United Nations can look at the particular problem in order to become a concept that really brings forward the discussion of the protection of religion.
I thought this was really a political issue and not a religious issue, and an issue, again, of politics and not of discrimination.
I thought some of the questions and answers were also were quite interesting because people were coming with it from different viewpoints of what it means and of that very question of what law means and how it's implemented, whether it be in Islamic countries or Catholic countries or other countries. I thought that was a nice dialogue.
I think there needs to be a lot more discussion on how, on an international level, you can maintain free speech, the right to criticism, and yet respect other people's beliefs. That's important.
Change in emphasis of the UN from the individual's right to believe or not believe as he or she chooses to the idea that somehow religions as religions deserve some sort of protection. That seems to me a very, very dangerous postulate.
There are different cultural experiences of freedom of expression and freedom of religion, and also respect for the role of religion in a particular culture that I think give different angles on how to think about those types of protections.
Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Be sure to check us out online over at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you have a question for us, maybe a comment or a story idea, send us an email. Our address is dropusaline@currentsny.net. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.